Question. To see cars in your blind spot, you should. Option number 1. Look in the inside rear view mirror. Option number 2. Look in the outside rear view mirror. Option number 3. Turn your head. The answer is option number 3. Turn your head. Note: the driver's blind spots are shown in the graphic. If you look only in your mirrors, you cannot see vehicles in these blind spots. Turn your head to see if a vehicle is in one of these blind spots. Question. Which way do you turn your front wheel to park downhill next to a curb? Option number 1. Parallel to the curb. Option number 2. Into the curb. Option number 3. Away from the curb. The answer is option number 2. Into the curb. Note: when you park headed downhill, turn your front wheels into the curb or towards the side of the road. Set the parking brake. Question. When parking uphill on a two-way street with no curb, your vehicle's front wheels should be. Option number 1. So they face straight ahead. Option number 2. Left towards the center of the road. Option number 3. Right towards the side of the road. The answer is option number 3. Right towards the side of the road. Note: when parking uphill where there is no curb, turn the wheels right towards the shoulder of the road. Set the parking brake and leave the vehicle in gear or in the park position. Question. Which way should your front wheels be turned when parked uphill next to a curb? Option number 1. Parallel to the curb. Option number 2. Into the curb. Option number 3. Away from the curb. The answer is option number 3. Away from the curb. Note: when you park headed uphill, turn your front wheels away from the curb and let your vehicle roll back a few inches. The wheel should gently touch the curb. Set the parking brake. Question. With a Class C driver's license, a person may drive. Option number 1. A 3-axle vehicle if the gross vehicle weight is less than 6,000 pounds. Option number 2. A 2-axle vehicle if the gross vehicle weight is less than 28,000 pounds. Option number 3. A 3-axle vehicle if the gross vehicle weight is less than 8,000 pounds. The answer is option number 1. A 3-axle vehicle if the gross vehicle weight is less than 6,000 pounds. Note: with a Class C driver's license, you may drive a 2-axle vehicle with a gross vehicle weight rating of 26,000 pounds or less, 3-axle vehicle weighing 6,000 pounds, house car 40 feet or less in length, 3-wheel motorcycle with 2 wheels located in the front or back, van pull vehicle designed to carry more than 10 persons but not more than 15 persons, including the driver. Question. Is it legal to drive with an alcoholic container that has been opened? Option number 1. No, you cannot carry an opened alcoholic container in vehicle. Option number 2. Yes, if the alcoholic container is in the trunk. Option number 3. Yes, if you are accompanied by a parent or other person as specified by law. The answer is option number 2. Yes, if the alcoholic container is in the trunk. Note: a container of alcohol carried inside the vehicle must be full, sealed, and unopened. An open container of alcohol must be kept in the trunk of the vehicle or a place where passengers do not sit. Keeping an open container of alcohol in the glove compartment is specifically against the law. Question: a curb painted blue means parking is? Option number 1. For disabled persons with a special placard or special license plate. Option number 2. Allowed for no longer than 15 minutes. Option number 3. For picking up or dropping off passengers. The answer is option number 1. For disabled persons with a special placard or special license plate. Note: parking at blue-colored curb is permitted only for a disabled person or driver of a disabled person who displays a placard or special license plate for disabled persons or disabled veterans. A cross-hatched diagonal lines area adjacent to a designated disabled parking space is a no parking area. Question: there is a vehicle stopped on the right shoulder of the road with its hazard light on. You should. Option number 1. Maintain your speed but watch out for other vehicles. Option number 2. Slow down and pass very carefully. Option number 3. Stop before crossing the vehicle. The answer is option number 2. Slow down and pass very carefully. Note: if you see a vehicle's hazard lights ahead, slow down. There may be a collision or other road emergency ahead. Stop and give assistance if asked by anyone, or pass very carefully. Avoid driving near collisions if possible. Those injured will be helped faster if other vehicles aren't blocking the road. Question: at night, if any oncoming vehicle fails to dim its high beams, look. Option number 1. Towards the vehicle and flash high beam headlights to the oncoming vehicle. Option number 2. Stop your vehicle. Option number 3. Towards the right edge of your lane. The answer is option number 3. Towards the right edge of your lane. Note: at night, if another vehicle's lights are bright, do not look directly into the oncoming headlights. Look towards the right edge of your lane. Watch the oncoming vehicle out of the corner of your eye. Question: when a school bus with its red light flashing is stopped ahead on your side of the road, you must. Option number 1. Stop and wait until all the children have left the bus. Option number 2. Change lanes, drive slowly and pass cautiously. Option number 3. Stop until the light stops flashing. The answer is option number 3. Stop until the light stops flashing. Note: when the school bus flashes red lights, you must stop from either direction in case of undivided highway until the children are safely across the street and the lights stop flashing. The law requires you to remain stopped as long as the red lights are flashing. If you fail to stop, you may be fined up to $1,000 and your driving privilege could be suspended for 1 year. Question: when you park on a level road next to a curb. Option number 1. Your wheels must be within 18 inches of the curb. Option number 2. You must turn your front wheel towards the side of the road. Option number 3. You do not have to set parking brakes. The answer is option number 1. Your wheels must be within 18 inches of the curb. Note: when you park alongside a curb on a level street, the front and back wheels must be parallel within 18 inches of the curb. Park parallel to the street if there is no curb. Question: when parking next to a curb, you should use your turn signal. Option number 1. Only when pulling away for the curb. Option number 2. When pulling close to or away from the curb. Option number 3. When pulling next to but not away for the curb. The answer is option number 2. When pulling close to or away from the curb. Note: signals may be given by hand and arms positions or using the vehicle's signal lights. One should use turn signal before pulling next to the curb or away from the curb. Question: when driving on a multi-lane street with two-way traffic. Option number 1. Use the 2-second following distance rule. Option number 2. You should drive ahead or behind the other vehicles. Option number 3. You should drive directly alongside other vehicles. The answer is option number 2. You should drive ahead or behind the other vehicles. Note: avoid driving directly alongside other vehicles on multi-lane streets with or without traffic in the opposite direction. Drive either ahead of or behind the other vehicle. Question: 2 sets of solid double yellow lines spaced 2 feet or more apart. Option number 1. Should only be crossed to make a left turn. Option number 2. Should be treated like a solid wall and not the crossed. Option number 3. May be used to begin or end the left-hand turns. The answer is option number 2. Should be treated like a solid wall and not the crossed. Note: 2 sets of solid double yellow lines spaced 2 feet or more apart are considered a barrier. Do not drive on or over this barrier, make a left turn or a U-turn across it except at designated openings. Question: you are driving in the far right lane of a 4-lane freeway and notice thick broken white lines on the left side of your lane. You are driving in. Option number 1. The carpool lane or must merge into the next lane. Option number 2. An exit lane. Option number 3. A special lane for slow moving vehicles. The answer is option number 2. An exit lane. Note: freeway lanes which are ending with usually be marked by large broken lines painted on the pavement. If you are driving in a lane marked with these broken lines, be prepared to exit the freeway or the lane to end. Question: when driving on a steep slope, you ought to. Option number 1. Shift to a low gear before going down steep hills. Option number 2. To maintain traction, shift to a high gear. Option number 3. Accelerate your vehicle. The answer is option number 1. Shift to a low gear before going down steep hills. Note: to prevent skidding on slippery surfaces, shift to low gear before going down a steep hill. Question: While driving on the street, you saw a deep puddle ahead. You should. Option number 1. Maintain your usual speed to make it through the water. Option number 2. Avoid the puddle if possible. Option number 3. Shift to neutral gear as you drive through the water. The answer is option number 2. Avoid the puddle if possible. Note: to prevent skidding of vehicle, avoid especially slippery areas such as ice patches, wet leaves, oil, or deep puddles. Question: you hit a parked vehicle and can't find the owner. What must you do? Option number 1. Leave a note with your name and address on the parked vehicle and report the incident to the city police. Option number 2. Call the nearest human society and police. Option number 3. Try to find the owner and report the incident to authorities. The answer is option number 1. Leave a note with your name and address on the parked vehicle and report the incident to the city police. Note: if you hit a parked vehicle or other property, leave a note with your name, phone number, and address in or surely attached to the vehicle or property you hit. Report the collision to the city police. If you kill or injure an animal, call the nearest human society, police. Do not try to move an injured animal or leave an injured animal to die. Question: you are approaching a green traffic light but something is blocking the intersection. What is the best thing to do? Option number 1. Partially enter the intersection to establish your right of way. Option number 2. Do not enter the intersection until you can get completely across. Option number 3. Proceed to the intersection and wait for traffic to clear. The answer is option number 2. Do not enter the intersection until you can get completely across. Note: if you notice a blocked intersection, wait until it is clear to safely cross, even you have the green traffic signal light. You do not want to be caught in an intersection with traffic coming at you. Question: an orange and red sign in this shape always means? Option number 1. Stop the vehicle ahead. Option number 2. Slow moving vehicle. Option number 3. Worker working ahead. The answer is option number 2. Slow moving vehicle. Note: farm tractors, animal drawn carts, and road maintenance vehicles usually travel 25 miles per hour or less. Slow moving vehicles have an orange or red triangle on the back of the vehicles. Question: you can be fined up to $1,000 and jail time up to 6 months if you are cited for? Option number 1. Dumping and or abandoning an animal on a highway. Option number 2. Starting a U-turn from a center left turn lane. Option number 3. Parking in near a bicycle lane. The answer is option number 1. Dumping and or abandoning an animal on a highway. Note: do not dump or abandon an animal or animals on a highway. This crime is punishable by a fine up to $1,000, 6 months in jail, or both. Question: this yellow sign means? Option number 1. Lanes merge ahead. Option number 2. Divided highway ahead. Option number 3. Obstructed roadway ahead. The answer is option number 2. Divided highway ahead. Question: assuming you have good tires, brakes, you brake suddenly at 55 miles per hour. What minimum distance you shall require to react and bring your vehicle to a complete stop? Option number 1. About 400 feet. Option number 2. About 210 feet. Option number 3, about 550 feet. The answer is option number 1, about 400 feet. Note, at 55 miles per hour, it takes about 400 feet to react and bring a vehicle to a complete stop. At 35 miles per hour, it takes about 210 feet to react and bring your vehicle to a complete stop. Question. Drivers of large trucks often travel with a lot of space in front of their vehicle. This extra space is needed for option number 1, other drivers to use when merging into an off-ramp. Option number 2, the truck driver to use for stopping his vehicle. Option number 3, other drivers to use when they want to slow down. The answer is option number 2, the truck driver to use for stopping his vehicle. Note, large trucks take longer to stop than passenger vehicles traveling at the same speed. The average passenger vehicle traveling at 55 miles per hour can stop within 400 feet. However, a large truck traveling at the same speed can take almost 800 feet to stop. Question. If you have a health condition that might affect your ability to drive safely, you should notify option number 1, the DMV. Option number 2, the local police or CHP. Option number 3, your insurance company. The answer is option number 1, the DMV. Note, if you have a medical condition or a disability, DMV may require you to take a driving test. You may also have to provide a statement from your physician regarding your current health condition. Question. Hydroplaning is most likely on option number 1, windy days. Option number 2, rainy days. Option number 3, snowy days. The answer is option number 2, rainy days. Note, in a heavy rain at speeds of 50 miles per hour or more, your tires can lose all contact with the road, and then your vehicle may start riding on water or hydroplaning. If a vehicle starts to hydroplane, slow down gradually, do not apply the brakes. Question. If a broken yellow line separates two lanes of traffic, it means option number 1, passing is permitted from both sides. Option number 2, passing is permitted from both sides only when it's safe. Option number 3, passing is prohibited from both sides. The answer is option number 2. Passing is permitted from both sides only when it's safe. Note, broken yellow lines indicate that you may pass if the movement can be made safely. A solid yellow line indicates that passing is not allowed. Question. Which is the proper way to change lanes? Option number 1. Make a signal, look into your mirrors, and then switch the lanes. Option number 2. Make a signal, check into your mirrors, and look over your shoulder before you switch lanes. Option number 3. Look into your mirrors, look over your shoulder, then switch lane. The answer is option number 2. Make your signal, check into your mirrors, and look over your shoulder before you switch lanes. Note, signal at least 5 seconds before you change lanes, check into your mirrors, look over your shoulder, and change lanes one at a time until you are in the proper lane. Question. You are towing another vehicle or a trailer on a freeway with 4 lanes in your direction. You may travel in option number 1, either of the 2 right lanes. Option number 2, in the rightmost lane. Option number 3, in any lane of the 4 lanes. The answer is option number 1, either of the two right lanes. Note: when you tow a vehicle or trailer or drive a bus or 3 or more axle truck, you must drive in the rightmost lane or in a lane specially marked for slower vehicles. If no lanes are marked and there are 4 lanes or more in your direction, you may only drive in either of the 2 lanes closest to the right edge of the road. Question: while driving, you should look 10 to 15 seconds ahead of you. Option number 1, to enable you to see potential hazards early. Option number 2, shall help you to avoid skidding. Option number 3, because it is a legal requirement. The answer is option number 1, to enable you to see potential hazards early. Note: to avoid last-minute moves, scan the road 10 to 15 seconds ahead of your vehicle so you can see hazards early. Constantly staring at the vehicle or road right in front of your vehicle is dangerous. As you scan ahead, be alert for vehicles around you. Use your mirrors, know what is behind you so you can prepare for what is ahead. Question: do not try to pass another vehicle when? Option number 1, within 100 feet of an intersection, bridge, tunnel or railroad crossing. Option number 2, within 50 feet of an intersection, bridge, tunnel or railroad crossing. Option number 3, if you are approaching a hill. The answer is option number 1, within 100 feet of an intersection, bridge, tunnel or railroad crossing. Question: you may pass on the right only when? Option number 1, an open highway is clearly marked for 2 or more lanes of travel in your direction. Option number 2, the driver of the other vehicle is signaling a right turn. Option number 3, in an open 2-lane highway with no vehicle in opposite direction. The answer is option number 1. An open highway is clearly marked for 2 or more lanes of travel in your direction. Note: pass traffic on the left. You may pass on the right only when an open highway is clearly marked for 2 or more lanes of travel in your direction. The driver ahead of you is turning left and you do not drive off the roadway to pass on right. Question: if you plan to pass another vehicle, you should. Option number 1, not assume the other driver will make space for you to return to your lane. Option number 2, assume drivers always obey traffic sign and signal. Option number 3, assume other drivers will give you right of way. The answer is option number 1. Not assume the other driver will make space for you to return to your lane. Note: never assume other drivers will give you the right of way. Before you pass, look ahead for road conditions and traffic that may cause other vehicles to move into your lane. Question: if your vehicle starts skidding, what will you do? Option number 1, ease off the brake pedal and gas. Option number 2, step on the brake pedals to prevent your vehicle from skidding. Option number 3, counter the skidding of the vehicle by turning the steering wheels. The answer is option number 1, ease of the brake pedal and gas. Note: if your vehicle starts to skid, ease of the accelerator, gas pedal. Stop braking. Turn the steering wheel in the direction of the skid. Question: if you intend making a right turn, you should. Option number 1, always stop before making a right turn. Option number 2, signal for at least 100 feet before you turn. Option number 3, slow your vehicle and signal just before you start your turn. The answer is option number 2, Signal for at least 100 feet before you turn. Question. When a traffic signal is not working at an intersection, you should. Option number 1. Come to a complete stop and then proceed when it is safe. Option number 2. Cautiously continue driving through the intersection. Option number 3. Slow your vehicle at the intersection, wait for the green light before proceeding. The answer is option number 1. Come to a complete stop and then proceed when it is safe. Note: the traffic signal light is not working and/or no lights are showing on the signal. Proceed cautiously as if the intersection is controlled by stop sign in all directions.